All right, well, it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as it actually felt.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time for another reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post-Oregon beating Maryland. Yes, they did indeed win the game, despite how the comment section might feel at times. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get 150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll talk about the biggest plays. I'll talk about the health situation going forward. Dan Lanning addressed that in his post-game press conference, but Oregon beats Maryland 39-18. And if you spend any amount of time in the Twitter sphere, the sky is falling and Oregon is a terrible football team that can't do anything right and is just no good, and we might as well punt on the season. So I'm being sarcastic, of course, because, well, that's only just an impression of the vibe you would get over there. But my impression is they're fine. They're fine. I got news for you. You can't play good football 15 games in a season. You just can't. There has never been, to my knowledge, a team that has played great football all the time. And Oregon has played against inferior competition really, really good football since the Boise State game. And Boise State's not even inferior. I don't know if Boise State won. I think they're still in a dogfight as I'm recording this show. They are... Oh, did they win? Did they win? Yeah, they won 28-21. So even then, Boise State, who's cruising through the Mountain West, they're playing inferior. Like, that's not Oregon's standard. Oregon is its own standard, of course, and they didn't play to that standard tonight. There's no way to sugarcoat that. It was a slow start. It was sloppy. The penalties were infuriating. This is the most frustrating game to watch on TV if you're a fan, because you can see Oregon's defense just dominating Maryland across the board. They can't run the ball. Maryland ends this game with 31 carries for 83 yards. Oregon only had 2 sacks. I thought the pressure was not as good as I thought it would be against this Maryland offensive line that has struggled, but that offensive line also allowed a pressure from Jordan Burch that led to a defensive touchdown. I'll talk about that more later, but this was not a great game for Oregon. And so this goes back to a point that I've brought up on the show before. Oregon plays, what was that, a C- game? They end with, wait for it, oh boy, wait for it, oh, this is going to be so ugly, 12 penalties. 6 of them led to Maryland first downs. Only 95 yards is kind of crazy, but, a number of them occurred in the red zone, so they moved the ball a couple yards forward. It cost Oregon a lot of points in this game. Now, I was 1 point away from predicting Oregon's score correctly. That's the second time this year I've been off with that. Well, it was a little bit different. I had the Illinois game 38-10. It was 38-9. I thought Oregon would score 38 points in this game. They scored 39, and the defense did a lot of that work. I think you could look at the box score in this game and really easily say, well, the offense didn't play very well. They didn't play great, but they didn't play horrifically. The defense gave them a lot of short fields because they were playing really well. They held Maryland under 300 total yards of offense. 206 through the air, so the streak is over. Shout out to Billy Edwards. He eclipsed the 200-yard mark against this Oregon defense. He's the first quarterback not named Will Howard to do so this year. The penalties were a huge part of it. There's just no other way around it. Oregon was its own worst enemy in this game. So let's just recap here. Everything that took place at Autzen Stadium tonight. Oregon got off to a sloppy, terrible, no good, very bad start on both sides of the ball. They were committing penalties all night and gifting Maryland points and second and third and fourth opportunities to keep their offense on the field. Dylan Gabriel was under 200 yards passing. Tez Johnson didn't play, and Oregon won by 21 points. That's where Oregon's at. Good teams have those sorts of issues, those off games, and they wind up coming really close to losing. I never worried about Oregon losing this game. Okay teams have those sorts of mistakes and say we would have won had that not happened. Great teams go like this. You play a poor brand of football compared to what you're capable of and still win the game by 21 points. I know Maryland's not any good. Maryland is now 4-5. They're 1-5 in conference play. But this is what happens. If you go look at the 12-game regular season schedule of every game that has, or every team that has won the national championship in the last 3 or 4 years, you're going to find these sorts of games. Like, this is Oregon's down game. It's easy to feel down about how they played. A lot of things to clean up. I'm sure Dan Lanning is acutely aware of that. You got to get off to a better start. You just got to stop being sloppy. You got to stop being sloppy. Like, the first drive told the story of the entire game. Maryland can't move the ball, and then a penalty that was questionable, but I think by the book called correctly on Dalen Austin on that punt. I'll talk about that more later. A penalty gives them a chance, and they go down and end up getting points. That's what it was. They converted a 4th down on a penalty. They had a 3rd and goal that turned into a 1st and goal because of a penalty. They had several 3rd downs. They had the roughing the punter, everything. This was just Oregon shooting themselves in the foot as many times as they possibly could, and it was infuriating to watch, and they won by 21 points. They still won by 21 points. They had 9 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and Noah Whittington looked awesome. This is just where Oregon is at. So, no, I'm not thrilled with how Oregon played. I am happy with the fact that they come out and play not anywhere close to what their potential is, wildly sloppy, and they still win the game comfortably. They still win the game comfortably, and everyone can shout at Autzen with the knowledge that, hey, they're going to win the football game. And, yeah, there were a lot of things to clean up, and Ty Felton went for 72 yards. He had 7 catches. A couple of them were timely. Turns out that guy's really, really good. Really, really good. And yet Oregon still felt like they weren't very good on 3rd down, right? Defensively. That's what it felt like. The way that this game felt throughout most of it is not how it actually played out. It's just that Oregon's expectations right now are so high because they're capable of so much that you look at holding Maryland to 7 of 19 on 3rd down, and you don't think about a team that did well in that department. You think about a team that gave up too many 3rd and longs. And yeah, at times, I agree. I absolutely agree. 37% for your opponent on 3rd down for a legitimately good passing offense. And Billy Edwards, by the way, he made some really good throws. He made some not so great ones as well, and he definitely missed a couple. That's why he's the quarterback at Maryland and not the quarterback at a more big-time football program. But he made some high-level throws out there. There was one on a 3rd down. I think Brandon Johnson got beat on a deep out, and he sits in the pocket. Pressure comes. Savage can't get there on the blitz, and he just throws an absolute dime all the way out wide across the field. And sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say, yeah, this is a team that can really throw the football. And Oregon was not good offensively on 3rd down. They were 6 of 15. They were 2 of 3 on 4th. And it wasn't great. This was not a great game from Oregon by any stretch of the imagination. But when you can play a subpar game, which is a phrase I've never understood because subpar is actually what you're trying to do in golf. Anyway, when you can play a below average game and win by 21 points against a conference opponent, you're in a good place. You're in a good place. And Oregon is in a good spot after this game. They're just fine. Over on Locked On College Football, and I've done this all the way back to the Locked On Pac-12 days, RIP, I do a fan mood assessment, what I think the mood should be for a fan base following a particular game based on my expectation going into it. And there is a 5-point scale. You can be an outright loser or an outright winner. Those are the two extremes. You can have a lean win, a lean lose, or no vibe. This would be a no vibe game for Oregon. It's just, all right, on to the next one. Let's get healthy. Let's go beat Wisconsin. That's where Oregon's at. Nothing special, but nothing terrible here. Game was never seriously in doubt. Oregon's defense is still really good when it doesn't get in its own way, and you got to clean up the coverage issues. But yeah, Oregon's fine. I don't think there needs to be widespread panic. I might feel like Melissa McCarthy as Sean Spicer going through the YouTube comments later, like, all right, settle down, settle down, settle down. First of all, I would like to note that I am calm now. I'm never calm hosting this show, obviously. I think that's part of why I keep you engaged. But let me know your thoughts. Drop them in the YouTube comments anyway. Hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. All you Locked On Ducks insiders can message me all throughout the night. I will be up into the wee hours of the morning watching Utah and BYU. Let's recap the biggest plays in this game because there was some fun stuff. There was some fun stuff here. It wasn't all ugly. There was plenty of good. There was some not so good as well. That is all coming up next. After I remind you, this episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring with good reason. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Ginger tea. It's the second segment sip. Beverage of choice. Okay. A lot of moments in this game. That stand out. So let's start with the first one. The Dalen Austin roughing the punter. I understand the impression, and this is, again, a microcosm of the entire feeling. You watch, you're frustrated, you're annoyed. It's not actually as bad as you think. So you watch it and go, well, what's he supposed to do? He runs into the guy. The ball wasn't tipped. By rule. This was one of the few good calls from the officials. And by the way, I have no idea what they were looking at on that Terrence Ferguson touchdown. But hey, my prediction came to pass and T. Ferg scored. Yippee. I don't know what was going on there. But if the ball is not tipped and the punter has established himself in a position back there, which was a subjective call, but I actually thought they got it right. Dalen Austin's got to either touch the ball or not hit the punter. Them's the rules. So I didn't have a problem with that particular call. Now, one of the pass interference calls against Tysheem Johnson, I don't know what we're doing for the guys in the black and white stripes. Did not impede the progress in a major way. Felt like a flag that was thrown because Tysheem had committed a personal foul earlier and, they were close in proximity. And so it felt like, well, he committed that flag on the play prior, so he probably did it again here. That's what that one felt like. So, yeah, calls weren't good, going both ways. What do you know? Officials aren't very good. Again. So, I didn't have a problem with the Dalen Austin thing, but I tell you what. Was that drive to go up 29-10 the most hilarious, inexplicably great touchdown drive in the history of Oregon football? I'm serious. That was some next level, who cares, let's throw everything against the wall and see what sticks stuff from Dan Lanning and Joe Lorig and company. Because, you run a fake punt to Jordan Burch, and that's the least crazy thing that happens. You throw a touchdown to a backup offensive lineman, Janoris Wilson, who's barely played and has never caught a pass before. And then you run the 2-point conversion. You don't need it. You have no practical need for a 2-point conversion. You're already up 27-10, but you say, let's work on it. And let's involve Josh Connerly, the left tackle. Oh, Dan's just a maniac, man. I don't know what else to say. A big man touchdown. Special shout out to my buddy Alex, who's an offensive lineman back in high school. He loves the big fellas. Loves when they get love. Loves when they score touchdowns. I tell you what. I was grinning ear to ear going, oh my gosh. And by the way, that came after the fake punt in which they tried a double reverse flea flicker back to Dylan Gabriel, in which the official right in front of the play didn't throw his flag. And I'm like, what is you looking at, dog? He just body checked him. Are we playing hockey out here? You can't do that while the ball's in the air. And then the other official threw the flag. So they eventually got it right. But that was, again, one of those things where those sorts of moments spiraled throughout the game, I think, to grow a sense of frustration that was warranted at some level, but shouldn't have been as high as it was, because Oregon really always had this game in control. They did. And yeah, they played poorly early. Then they found some explosion in the passing game. Jordan James had the nice catch and run. Noah Whittington had a great game. He ended the game with, wait for it, got to get this right, 13 carries, 77 yards, and no touchdowns, but had some really good-looking runs. The 28-yard scamper he had was phenomenal. And Jordan James, only 7 carries in this one. I think they're just keeping him fresh. That was the indication. I'll talk about that more in the third segment, because I think that happened with a couple of different guys, because health is certainly something that I think everybody is monitoring at this point in the year. But that drive was just sicko behavior. It went from 21-10 of like, is this going to be uncomfortable? Is this going to be to, wait, Jordan Burch, Janoris Wilson, and Josh Connerly were all involved in touchdown or first down moving plays on the same drive? What are we doing? Like, it's so great. It's so great. It's phenomenally good. Speaking of Jordan Burch, that was the Jordan Burch we saw earlier in the year, early in the game. And frankly, it was a bit of relief. That was the moment where I knew, yeah, Oregon's got this. You know, the sloppy offensive play, that can linger. You have a turnover here or there maybe, or they weren't great in every third down situation. I thought Whittington had a good game. I think Noah Whittington single-handedly cost Oregon a third down conversion. I'd have to go back and watch the play again, but there was a 3rd and 1, forget which quarter, but Gabriel's running an RPO, and he tried to pull it from Whittington's stomach, which was the right play, and Whittington, I think, just kind of took it from him, and Gabriel had 2 guys open on the RPO, or he maybe could have run for it. And that was a play where I watched and was like, that's not a great sequence there from Whittington. You got to let the quarterback make the read. I know you want the ball, but you got to make a better play there. Again, that's just what I saw on first glance. I don't know if I'll think something else watching it for the second time. But the Jordan Burch play was so good. I expected more of that, where Burch or Mateo or Derek Harmon just bully the Maryland offensive line. Didn't happen a ton. Only 2 sacks. They did allow just 2.7 yards a carry. I thought there'd be a little more pressure early in the game, and I think as a result, Oregon blitzed a little bit more than they otherwise would have, and Billy Edwards was able to exploit some of those openings. He wasn't always able to exploit those openings, though. He's 22 of 44 passing the football. Like, that's a good day from the secondary when you've got 2 picks. Justin Jacobs with channeling his inner Kiko Alonso there on the diving interception. That was great. But Burch coming off the edge, and Brandon Johnson, the heads-up play. Nothing drives me insane more than a ball being on the ground, not sure if it's a pass or a fumble or whatever, and guys stop playing. There is I repeat, no downside to continuing as if it happened. And a Maryland receiver, if you watch, he did stop playing. He thought, oh no, it was a pass. Because when I watched it live for the first time, I thought it was a pass. And then I watched the replay and went, oh, nope, that's very clearly a fumble. And it caromed beautifully into Brandon Johnson's hands. And he's really fast, went the other way, scored a touchdown. And I felt like turnovers were always close to happening for Oregon. There were a couple plays batted down by defensive linemen. I think there were 4 passes defended by defensive linemen in this game, maybe 5. Actually, I can check on that. Hold on. Wait for it. Caldwell had 2, Burch had 2, and Mateo had 1, and Mari Washington had 1. So 6 passes got batted down at the line of scrimmage. That's kind of the counter to not having as many sacks, as they did a great job getting their hands up in there. I thought there were a couple times where Kobe Savage was going to have an interception, but the ball got batted down at the line of scrimmage, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I thought Savage played his best game as a Duck, bar none. He was making a lot of really, really high-impact plays. He'll definitely be one of my individual standouts on Monday's show. But, you know, Burch coming off the edge, forcing the fumble, Johnson getting it, then the interception by Justin Jacobs. Disappointing that Oregon had 1st and goal inside I think they were inside the 7-yard line, weren't able to punch it in, might have been inside the 5 even, and they weren't able, and they had to settle for the field goal there. That ends up being the reason that Oregon didn't cover. But when your biggest gripe arguably is, well, Oregon didn't cover. Okay. Whoop-de-doo. Who cares, as Oregon's head coach might say. So those are a lot of the moments that stood out to me. Let me know your thoughts. If you think there are any big ones that I missed, I'll talk about them on Monday's show. Injuries are not exactly where we'd like them to be. It's not the most ideal situation, but might not be as bad as it looked. Kind of like everything else in this game. That's coming up next. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And Oregon was favored by our friends at FanDuel by 23.5 points. They didn't cover that number. Oh no, they only won by 21. It's America's number one sports book either way, and yeah, Oregon's still the number one team in the country either way too. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win, and the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go check them out at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, that's the place to go. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so Jordan Burch looked like Jordan Burch again. And then he dinged up the same leg that he got hurt with. Now, Dan Lanning downplayed the injury after the game. He also talked about Jordan James. On James, he said, quote, "We're not exactly sure where he's at. I think he could have gone back in, but we're being pretty conscientious of where he was." I think that's twofold. Number one, that Jordan James, a physical runner, might have been banged up at one point in time, but I think that he's at a point in the season where managing his workload is really good. Really, really, really good for this Oregon offense, because running backs, they wear down. They just do. You need to have two. You'd like to maybe even have three, and Jaden Lamar has gotten some work here and there, but I think that for Jordan James, a game where he only has 7 carries and Oregon wins by 21, fine by me. Got no problem. No problem with that whatsoever. And then Lanning said on Jordan Burch, quote, "I think he's fine, just tweaked his ankle a bit." The good news is Oregon does have a bye left in the regular season, so it's Wisconsin next week in Madison, and then it's a bye, and then it's the Washington game at home, and then if they win both those games, they'll be in the Big Ten championship game against the winner, in all likelihood, of Ohio State and Indiana. Not in all likelihood, that's what it would be. Is Ohio State, Indiana winner is going to face Oregon if they win their next 2 games. So I think that that's an okay place to be for Oregon injury-wise. No Marcus Harper in this game. I thought Dave Iuli played well. I'll see what PFF has to say later and recap that on Monday's show, but I thought that Dave Iuli played well enough. I mean, Oregon throws the ball. By the way, no sacks for Maryland in this game. That's always a good starting point for measuring how well an offensive line has gelled. There were a couple of procedural penalties on offense, but most of the penalty yardage came defensively. Oregon averaged 5.8 yards a carry, went for 180 on the ground. And I think if Oregon had to go the length of the field, they would have had more yardage, but they just routinely had short fields because the defense kept setting them up. Defense kept picking guys off. They forced, one turnover went for the touchdown, but the 2 interceptions gave Oregon short fields. And I didn't feel like the Oregon offense was flawless. I didn't think that it was terrible. It was just it was fine. It was fine. And there's nothing wrong with fine. If Georgia's offense had been fine today, they might have beaten Ole Miss, but they weren't fine. They were terrible. So there are other teams in the country, great programs, great teams with high-level players who are going down because they're not playing to their standard. Oregon's not playing to their standard and only winning by 21 points. This is the second straight week that Oregon wins by exactly 21 points. 38-17 last week against Michigan, 39-18. That's funny. I didn't think about that. Both team point totals went up by exactly 1 point. But you understand what I'm saying here. Oregon is in a good place. They're in a good place after this game. I don't feel as good about how they played compared to the Michigan game, but Jordan Burch and Jordan James appear to be all right. And Marcus Harper, not expected to be down for the entire season. Tez Johnson was not in a sling on the sideline. He was last week after he left the game against Michigan. Those guys are coming back at some point. And yeah, I want to see him in there. And maybe this was just an off day for the offense. I did figure there would be some adjustment to playing offense without Tez Johnson out there. I think that was clear. And this is the first game that Dylan Gabriel's under 200 yards passing on the season. Yeah, there's probably a little bit of an adjustment. I didn't think it would be that steep of a drop-off. I probably would have pegged him to be in the 250, 260 range at least against a pretty porous Maryland secondary, but this is still a good performance from Oregon. And yeah, 32 points come from the offense, 7 points come from the defense. I think it's good. I think it's good. There's nothing wrong with good. I'm saying that a lot because I think it's a hard thing for some people to wrap their heads around. Like every week you want to go out and beat someone 35-0 or 38 to or 31 to or what I don't even know what the scores have been. 38-17, run it up at the end. No, sometimes you just want to have games like this where you can go out, you can play poorly, send a little bit of a reminder to that locker room that, hey, not a finished product yet. Haven't accomplished what we're setting out to accomplish, what we're capable of doing this season. All those goals still within reach. They haven't been hindered because of one bad penalty game. Oregon had 2 penalties last week. This was an over-regression. I thought they'd get back to the mean, maybe have 5 or 6, but yeah, 12 penalties, 95 yards. Clean it up. Clean it up. Got things to work on this week, but that's good. Keep a team that's 10-0, ranked number 1 in the country, has everybody and their mother singing their praises, deservedly so. Give them something to work on. Give them something in their heads that makes them go, we're not good enough yet. We're not done. Have to keep getting better. So, yeah, solid spot. Burch, James, both expect to be okay. We'll see about Harper and Tez. I don't expect Tez to play next week. Harper, we'll see, but thought the offensive line held up pretty darn well. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.